What happens when the most shocking films from the Grindhouse era break through to the Hollywood mainstream? From grim revenge tales to outrageous road races and blood-soaked creature features, these are the stories that refuse to stay buried. Some of them are infamous, some are iconic, and all of them prove one thing: you can dress it up, you can polish the edges, but you can't kill the Grindhouse spirit. Today, we're diving into 10 exploitation films that clawed their way out of cult obscurity and came back with mainstream remakes. I Spit on Your Grave, 1778 to 2010. This one's got a legacy drenched in controversy, whispered about in grindhouse corners, and banned in more countries than some dictators. The original I Spit on Your Grave, also known under the more polite title Day of the Woman, dropped in 1978 and took the revenge film formula and cranked it into something raw, primal, and almost too real. The story follows a young writer who heads to the countryside for some solitude and peace. What she gets instead is a group of brutal attackers who think she's an easy target. What follows is a chilling transformation from victim to hunter. Now, here's the thing. This film doesn't wink at the audience. It doesn't joke around. It's brutal. It's unforgiving. It was made with a kind of ragged edge that feels like it might just leap out of the screen and grab you. The pacing, the bleakness, the lingering shots. It's exploitation at its most unapologetic. Director Mayer Zarki never pulled his punches, and audiences paid for it. The movie was banned in several places, called everything from morally bankrupt to genuinely dangerous. But even its harshest critics couldn't ignore its impact. Fast forward to 2010, and Hollywood decides it's time to revisit this powder keg. The remake is slicker, sharper, and armed with a vengeance that's colder and more calculated. This time, the lead is played by Sarah Butler, and the setup is nearly the same, but with a more structured arc and some modern revenge movie polish. The traps she sets, the justice she dishes out, it all comes with a clear sense of direction. It's the same story, but with a few decades of genre evolution baked in. But make no mistake, the core rage of the original still burns. This isn't a soft retelling. It's a reimagining that doesn't flinch, and if anything, it gives the lead even more agency and precision. Critics were split, fans were louder, and soon it spawned a whole new series of sequels, turning one of cinema's most infamous cult stories into a full-on franchise. From whispered warnings in grindhouse aisles to prime streaming real estate, I Spit on Your Grave made its mark, twice, and both versions leave scars. The Last House on the Left, 1972 to 2009. This film didn't just upset audiences, it rocked them. Wes Craven's original, The Last House on the Left, dropped like a hammer in 1972. Loosely inspired by a classic art film, The Virgin Spring by Ingmar Bergman, this wasn't just an exploitation shock piece. It was a confrontation, the kind that hits your gut before you know what's happening. The setup? Two girls head into the city to catch a concert. They never make it. They're abducted by a group of criminals on the run who proceed to do the unthinkable. It's raw, grimy, and unforgiving. The violence is unsanitized. The sound design is unnerving. The whole film feels like a descent into chaos, with the camera never pulling away from the worst of it. But that's not even the end. The real kicker is what happens when the attackers unknowingly take shelter in one of the girls' homes. Her parents discover the truth, and what happens next is cold, methodical retribution. This wasn't a film made for fun. It was made to test your tolerance. Craven used horror not just to scare, but to reflect something darker in society, about violence, about justice, about how thin the line is between civilized people and something far more primal. Then came 2009. The remake doesn't try to copy the grit of the original. Instead, it modernizes the story with higher production value, recognizable actors, and a tighter plot. Tony Goldwyn and Monica Potter play the parents, and when they find out what happened to their daughter, they become weapons of revenge. This time, the audience isn't as torn. You're supposed to cheer them on. Violence is still brutal, but it's stylized. The atmosphere is still oppressive, but with more cinematic control. It's the same house, the same nightmare, but it's been rebuilt for a new generation. Less grime, more suspense. Some fans miss the guerrilla-style madness of the original. Others embrace the slick precision of the new version. Either way, the core remains intact. You do something unthinkable, and you pay the price. From drive-in horror taboo to a studio-backed thriller, Last House Lives On, and still dares you to look away. Hairspray, 1988 to 2007. Yes, you read that right. Hairspray is on this list. And if you only know it from its Broadway musical version or the 2007 film with John Travolta in a dress, you might be scratching your head. But dig a little deeper, and you'll find that the original Hairspray from 1988 was pure, unfiltered exploitation of the camp, weird, and wonderful variety. Directed by the one and only John Waters, Hairspray took place in 1960s Baltimore and followed Tracy Turnblad, a plus-size teen with a big heart, big dreams, and even bigger hair. She wants to dance on the Corny Colin show and help integrate it. That's the plot. But the magic is in the execution. Waters didn't just make a musical comedy. He made a Trojan horse for every misfit, outcast, and weirdo with something to say. Everything about the film feels designed to rattle normalcy. Divine plays Tracy's mom with a voice like a bulldozer. The visuals are candy-colored, but the themes hit hard. Racism, body shaming, the rigid norms of the 1960s suburbia. Waters wrapped it all in beehive wigs and rock and roll, and it somehow worked. Critics were confused, audiences were curious, and over time, it gained legendary status. Then, in 2002, it got turned into a Broadway musical. That show kept the bones of the story, but added soaring songs, upbeat dance numbers, and a little more heartwarming Polish. Enter 2007, and Hollywood decides to bring the musical to the big screen. This is where Travolta comes in. He plays Edna, and the film becomes a full-blown family event. Bright, cheerful, and bursting with energy, this Hairspray is all smiles, but still keeps a surprising amount of the original's bite. Racism is still front and center, so is body positivity. But it's wrapped in a much shinier package. Think glitter instead of grit. What started as a scrappy piece of outsider cinema became an Oscar-nominated musical and a box office hit. That's the power of camp when it's done right. From exploitation to Broadway and back again, Hairspray proves that sometimes the wildest films are the ones that can reach the widest audience when they know how to dance. Switchblade Sisters, 1975, remake in development. You want grit? You want gang fights, betrayal, machine guns, and eye patches? Then Switchblade Sisters is your ticket. Released in 1975 and directed by Jack Hill, yeah, the same guy who brought us Coffee and Foxy Brown. This is a high-octane, low-budget story about a teenage girl gang that doesn't take orders, doesn't play nice, and definitely doesn't wait for permission. This one is pure 70s grindhouse energy. The plot centers around Maggie, a new girl who quickly rises through the ranks of the Dagger Debs, a girl gang affiliated with the all-male Silver Daggers. But things spiral fast. There's a coup. Betrayals pile up. Loyalty means nothing, and the power struggle gets nasty. Before long, the girls take over, and the Dagger Debs rebrand themselves with a new name and a new mission: war. This movie isn't just loud and violent, it's stylish. The dialogue is punchy, the wardrobe is straight out of a pulp comic, and the action is wild. Rocket launchers get involved. Chain fights happen in diners. One girl gets busted out of juvie in a scene that plays like a jailbreak fantasy. It's raw, ridiculous, and unapologetically fun. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Switchblade Sisters didn't get much attention when it first dropped, but years later, it developed a loyal cult following. Quentin Tarantino re-released it under his Rolling Thunder Pictures label in the 90s. He called it one of the greatest girl gang movies ever made, and honestly, he's not wrong. A remake has been teased more than once. At one point, there were serious talks about a modern retelling with updated themes and a fresh cast. The idea? Keep the essence of the gang warfare and sisterhood, but transplant it into a new city, a new generation. Whether it's high school turf battles or street-level rebellion, the bones of the original are strong enough to hold it all together. As of now, the project's still in development limbo. But with today's hunger for fierce female-led action, it's only a matter of time before Switchblade Sisters comes swinging back with a vengeance. So grab your leather jackets and sharpen your switchblades. These girls didn't ask for permission, and they don't need your approval either. Faster, pussycat. Kill! Kill! 1965 to remake in development. If you know exploitation cinema, you know this title. Faster, pussycat. Kill! Kill! might just be the most iconic name in the whole genre. Directed by Russ Meyer, the king of bombastic, bold, in-your-face filmmaking, this 1965 classic is part hot rod chase movie, part revenge tale, and 100% attitude. No joke, this movie roars from the opening frame and never looks back. The story follows three go-go dancers who drive muscle cars across the desert and leave chaos in their rearview mirrors. They're not looking for trouble. Trouble's already in the trunk. These women are dangerous, unpredictable, and unrelenting. When they come across a couple in the middle of nowhere, things escalate fast. Kidnapping, mind games, and a plan to rob a disabled old man and his creepy sons. It sounds simple, but the execution is where the magic happens. The lead character, Varla, played by the unforgettable Tora Satana, is one of the fiercest women ever to grace the silver screen. She punches harder than most action heroes and wears confidence like armor. She's the reason this movie went from obscure drive-in flick to feminist cult icon. Back in the day, this was dismissed by critics as just more drive-in fluff, but over time, people began to see what Meyer was doing, flipping the script, making women the aggressors, giving them control in a genre that usually took it away. This isn't a story about damsels in distress. These are warriors in halter tops, and they're not here to play nice. Now, let's talk remake. This one has been circling Hollywood for years. At one point, Rob Zombie was attached to direct. He promised to stay true to the original's tone, but add a more modern edge, gritty, wild, and just as fearless. Casting rumors floated, buzz built, and then, nothing. The project stalled. Fans are still waiting, and waiting. Because this is one film that deserves a modern update, done right. The original's energy still crackles off the screen, but a new version could bring it to today's audiences with even more power. The style, the speed, the sheer audacity of it all, it's timeless. Until then, the original stands strong. A black and white fireball that never cools down. If you've never seen it, buckle up. These girls don't slow down for anything. Piranha, 1788. Piranha 3D, 2010. You thought Jaws made you scared of the water? Try Piranha. This 1978 bloodbath takes the monster in the lake concept and turns it into something leaner, meaner, and way more chaotic. Directed by Joe Dante in one of his earliest projects and produced by exploitation king Roger Corman, this movie is part creature feature, part Cold War satire, and 100% schlocky fun. The plot: a pair of unlucky folks stumble onto an abandoned military testing facility. What they don't know is that the scientists there were breeding genetically enhanced piranhas for warfare. Naturally, someone drains the holding tanks. You can guess what happens next. Cue the screaming campers, the bloody rivers, and the unstoppable swarm of razor-toothed fish tearing through everything in their path. This isn't high art, it's high energy. The special effects are wonderfully low budget, the acting swings from serious to over the top, and the pacing never lets you breathe. But here's the thing, it works. It's chaotic, it's fun, and it's fully aware of how ridiculous it is. There's even a moment when the government tries to cover it all up. Classic. Despite being seen as a Jaws knockoff at the time, Piranha carved out its own space in horror history. It became a late-night staple, beloved for its absurdity and gutsy sense of humor. It even got a few sequels and a spin-off. Then, in 2010, the fish came back, with teeth in 3D. Piranha 3D took the basic concept and dialed it up to 11. This remake is self-aware in all the best ways. It knows it's ridiculous. It doesn't try to be anything else. The setting moves to spring break, and the piranhas are somehow even more aggressive, even more relentless. What follows is a parade of chaos, explosions, and high-speed carnage. The effects are bigger, the body count is higher, and the jokes land fast. But underneath all that blood and foam, it's still the same idea. Humans messing with nature and nature biting back. Hard. Piranha went from low-budget horror gem to full-blown Hollywood spectacle without losing its soul. That's rare. It proves that sometimes the best remakes are the ones that lean into the madness and never look back. Maniac, 1980. Maniac, 2012. If you've ever watched a slasher movie and thought, what if we stayed with the killer the entire time? Maniac is the answer you weren't ready for. Released in 1980, this is one of those movies that feels like it escaped from a basement screening and clawed its way into your nightmares. Directed by William Lustig, Maniac doesn't waste time with mystery or red herrings. You meet the killer, you follow him, and you're stuck inside his warped little world from start to finish. The lead, played by Joe Spinell, is Frank Zito, a deeply disturbed man living in a rundown New York apartment. He collects mannequins, mutters to himself, and stalks women through the streets. His trauma from childhood still echoes in his mind, and unfortunately, everyone else pays the price. The film is sweaty, claustrophobic, and utterly grim. Frank's descent isn't just hinted at. It's right there, in your face, and it doesn't blink. What makes this film stand out isn't just the eerie soundtrack or the grainy New York grime. It's the brutal realism. The camera lingers, the violence feels personal, and the emotional atmosphere is so heavy you feel like you need a shower after watching it. This wasn't made for the faint of heart. It's a grindhouse masterpiece and a psychological horror showcase all rolled into one. Then, in 2012, a remake emerged, and it did something bold. It didn't try to copy the original. Instead, it reimagined it with a first-person perspective. That's right. The entire movie is shown through the killer's eyes. And the person behind those eyes, Elijah Wood. It's a wild casting move that somehow works perfectly. Wood's soft-spoken, boyish energy adds a new layer to the character, making him feel even more unsettling. The remake keeps the core themes, loneliness, obsession, inner torment, but upgrades everything else. The effects are sharper, the pacing is tighter, and the visual style is hypnotic. You're not just watching Frank descend into madness. You're inside his head. You see what he sees. You feel what he feels. And it's deeply uncomfortable. Both versions of Maniac earn their place in horror history. One is a sweat-drenched time capsule from the dirty streets of 1980s New York. The other is a sleek, surreal nightmare that forces you into the shoes of the killer. Either way, it's a ride through the darkest parts of the human mind, and once you've taken that ride, you don't forget it. Death Race 2000, 1975 to Death Race 2008. Now this one is a rocket-fueled piece of pure pulp madness. Death Race 2000 hit theaters in 1975 like a chrome-plated fist to the face. Produced by Roger Corman and directed by Paul Bartel, this flick is part sci-fi, part dystopian satire, and all chaos. It's the future. America is run by a dictatorship. And once a year, the country turns its eyes to the most brutal sport on wheels, the transcontinental road race. The goal? Cross the country first and rack up points by mowing down pedestrians. Yes, you read that right. This is a world where scoring road kills is part of the rules. And the drivers? They're not just racers, they're celebrities. Frankenstein, played by a leather-clad David Carradine, is the reigning champion. His rival? A loudmouth tough guy named Machine Gun Joe, played by none other than Sylvester Stallone before he became Rocky. The film is fast, feral, and loaded with absurdity. It's got cartoon-level violence, over-the-top characters, and more satire than most people gave it credit for at the time. Beneath the exploding cars and wild costumes is a sharp critique of American media, politics, and the bloodlust of reality entertainment. It's not just a race, it's a warped mirror. Then, in 2008, Death Race returned with a vengeance, but this time with Jason Statham behind the wheel. The remake trades in the satire for full-throttle action. Set inside a private prison where inmates race to the death for a shot at freedom, the new version feels more like The Fast and the Furious meets Gladiator. The cars are armored, the weapons are real, and the stakes are survival. Gone is the campy charm of the original. In its place is grit, grime, and steel. But it works. The film found its audience among action junkies who wanted no-nonsense destruction and high-stakes thrills. And while the remake doesn't hit the same satirical notes, it carries the spirit of rebellion, speed, and defiance. So, whether you prefer your road warriors covered in glitter and irony, or kitted out in tactical gear and rage, Death Race has a ride for you. Just buckle up, because once the flag drops, there are no breaks. Black Christmas, 1974, remakes in 2006 and 2019. Before the masked killers and final girls took over the slasher scene, there was Black Christmas. Released in 1974 and directed by Bob Clark, this holiday horror classic is often credited as one of the first real slashers, and it's still one of the most chilling. Set inside a sorority house over winter break, the story follows a group of college girls who begin receiving disturbing phone calls. At first, they think it's a prank. Then the calls get weirder, more frantic, more frightening. Soon, girls begin disappearing. What they don't know is that the killer is already inside the house, watching, waiting. What makes Black Christmas so unnerving is how it handles suspense. There are no jump scares, no musical stings, just silence, shadows, and a creeping sense of dread. The killer is never fully seen. His backstory is never explained. He's a whisper, a breath on the line, a glint in the attic window. And somehow, that makes it worse. It's a masterclass in less is more horror. Then came the remakes. First in 2006, a gorier, more stylized version hit theaters. This one dives into the killer's backstory, giving him a name, a face, and a twisted family history. The kills are creative, the visuals are loud, and the holiday theme is ramped up to full candy cane madness. Some fans appreciated the homage. Others felt it over-explained what the original left terrifyingly vague. Then came the 2019 remake, and this one went in a whole new direction. Instead of focusing purely on slasher tropes, the story centered around empowerment, solidarity, and fighting back against systemic threats. The tone shifted, the scares took a backseat to messaging, and once again, the horror community was divided. Each version of Black Christmas reflects its time. The original is quiet, patient, and deeply unsettling. The 2006 version is brash, bloody, and stylized. The 2019 one is bold, loud, and topical. And no matter which version you prefer, there's no denying the original set the stage. Before Michael Myers picked up a knife, before Freddy haunted dreams, there was a man in the attic whispering unspeakable things on the phone. Merry Christmas. The Crazies. 1973 to the Crazies. 2010. If Night of the Living Dead was George A. Romero's opening act, The Crazies was his chaotic encore. Released in 1973, this lesser-known gem takes the horror of infection and paranoia and injects it straight into the veins of small-town America. It starts with a government plane crash near a quiet Pennsylvania town. On board, a top-secret biological weapon designed to destabilize populations. The virus leaks into the water supply, and before long, people start losing their minds. Not zombies, not monsters. Just ordinary folks suddenly filled with rage, confusion, and violent urges. The kind of madness that creeps in without warning. What follows is a story of containment and collapse. Soldiers arrive in hazmat suits. Families are separated. Panic spreads faster than the virus, and through it all, a few desperate people try to escape. Not just the infected, but the government itself. This isn't just a movie about infection. It's about trust, and how quickly it vanishes when fear takes over. Romero's original film had all the hallmarks of his style: social commentary, low-budget grit, and a sense of inevitability. It wasn't just a monster movie, it was a warning. Then, in 2010, the story came roaring back. The remake, directed by Breck Eisner, took the same concept and polished it with a modern sheen. This version is faster, sleeker, and heavier on suspense. The small-town setting is still there, but the outbreak hits harder. The infected don't just lose their minds. They become something more terrifying, methodical, aggressive, and nearly unstoppable. Timothy Oliphant leads the cast as a local sheriff trying to save his wife and his town. The horror is more visual, the tension is more urgent, but the themes stay the same: government cover-ups, personal survival, and the fragility of civilization when everything falls apart. Both versions of The Crazies offer different experiences. One is a gritty 70s paranoia trip. The other is a slick modern thrill ride. But the fear they inspire, that's timeless. When everything you know starts to unravel and the people you trust start to turn, what would you do? If you enjoyed this deep dive into the wild world of remade cult classics, hit that like button, share it with your fellow film junkies, and subscribe for more underground to mainstream movie madness. And hey, if we missed a remake that blew your mind, drop it in the comments. We're just getting started. Until next time, keep it strange.